Hello, everyone. Welcome to GoLean6Sigma.com's webinar. I'm Tracy O'Rourke with GoLean6Sigma.com, and I will be your moderator today. Our webinar is titled Going Remote, How Process Improvement Teams Collaborate Virtually. Our presenter today is Mike Osterling, President of Osterling Consulting, whom I will introduce momentarily. If you haven't already, please join us for our first activity by sharing in the chat window. Where are you from? We get registrations from all over the world, and it's really fun and interesting to us to know where you're all coming from right now. So please type that in the chat window if you haven't already. Before I introduce Mike, my colleague and friend, just a few housekeeping notes. At the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A session. However, you can ask questions at any time in the chat window or in the Q&A area. We do welcome your participation. So Mike is going to be asking you to participate in some polls and some open-ended questions in the chat window. And we're going to do our best to answer all the questions. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of questions and comments as a part of this webinar, which is always a good thing. And so we're going to try to answer them as much as we can. But if not, we will post them in the GoLean6Sigma.com LinkedIn group so that you can see them there. All right, so also, let's take a look at where all these people are coming from. So let's say, oh, we got Mark Myers from Stay Classy, San Diego, and Skip Stewart from Baptist Memorial Healthcare, Julin from Fort Lauderdale. We have Ashley from Hamilton, Ontario, Ron from Toronto, Canada, Umberto from Mexico. Mike, you've got an international group here, as well as lots of people in the US. Jeff from Parkville, Missouri. We have Reem from Saudi Arabia, Genevieve from Montreal, Jennifer from Toronto, lots of people. So I don't want to do any further delays. Let me tell you a little bit about our presenter today, Mike Osterling. So Mike is the author of several books, including Value Stream Mapping, there's a bug, the Kaizen Event Planner, and Metrics-Based Process Mapping, all co-authored with Karen Martin. Mike is a coach, a facilitator, speaker, and consultant. He leads lean transformation and performance improvement from within as an external consultant. So Mike has been a consultant for more than 20 years, lots of experience. He's helped a broad range of industries, including manufacturing, oil and gas, financial services, technology, healthcare. And guess what else? Mike only lives 15 minutes from me in San Diego. And we've known each other for over 10 years now. We've co-taught together at San Diego State University in the Lean Enterprise course, and we've collaborated together on client engagements over the years. So I'm really happy to introduce Mike and my friend and my colleague. Welcome, Mike, finally.
Hey, thank you, Tracy. Great to be here, and thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. So 2020 has been a year of dramatic change for a lot of us, and Mike has helped multiple organizations transition their training, their coaching, their problem solving and improvement activities from the front lines to senior leadership in virtual formats. And I think many of us are dying to know what Mike has done. Our audience has been clamoring for some of this stuff, as you can tell for our big list of attendees today. And so we really want to hear from Mike and some of the learnings that he's had with the virtual events that he's facilitated. So first off, Mike, can you share and describe the different types of collaborative activities that you commonly facilitate?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Tracy. And again, thanks everybody for being here. Thanks for joining the fun. And like Tracy said, please, if you have questions or comments or anything like that, use the chat window, and we'll address as many of those as possible. So I've done all kinds of things over the years, Tracy, from training to coaching to team events. And so the focus of this conversation today is really about team events and how that's transitioned. So a sampling of the type of team events that I've done over the years, whether it's high-level strategy type stuff, like strategy deployment, I should say high-level strategic type stuff, like strategy deployment and value stream mapping. Done lots of Kaizen events and a variant of Kaizen events, rapid planning events. So those are samples of types of things that I've done over the years, Tracy.
Yes, these are excellent. I think a lot of people have heard of rapid improvement events and rapid planning events. I'm not sure people are familiar with the difference between rapid planning and rapid improvement events. Could you tell us just a little bit about what the difference is?
Absolutely. So Kaizen events, I mean, the big deliverable at the end of a Kaizen event, as most of us know, is, hey, when we walk out of the room at the end of the day, or at the end of the event, there's change that's been, we've identified, we've done a deep understanding of the current state process, current condition. We've identified countermeasures that might make sense to put in place. We've run some experiments on those countermeasures. And at the end of the event, we've actually implemented change. That's a Kaizen event or a rapid improvement event. A rapid planning event is similar, but in more complex environments where we can't get stuff put in place right away. Rather, at the end, we've got a transformation plan. It's still narrowly focused. It's very tactical in nature, but we have a plan as opposed to the changes actually being put in place.
Good. And so shall we launch a poll and ask our participants about what they've participated in?
Absolutely. So
right.
Would love to get your guys' feel on this. So what type of remote team-based continuous improvement activity have you participated in since the onset of COVID-19? And so you can pick all of that apply. You haven't done any, you've done Kaizen events, rapid planning events, value stream mapping, or strategy deployment / Hoshin Kanri type activities, or other.
Right.
So just take a minute here. Good.
Yeah, results are coming in. Which of these have you done the most of, Mike?
Since well, that's a good question. Probably the most is rapid planning events since the onset of COVID.
Interesting. Cool. All right, we're waiting for some more to come in. I would say Kaizen events. I've seen a lot of Kaizen events happening as well. So this will be good. Okay, let's end the poll and let's see what our results are. Share. All right, can you see this?
Yeah, I can see this, and it looks like everybody else can see it too. So actually, that's one of my tips, guys. Hey, if you're facilitating a remote event, steal your significant other's laptop for a couple hours, put it off on the side so you can see what everybody else sees. I've got my wife's laptop running, so she's a participant. Looks like close to half of the people have not done a remote event in the last 5 months. And other than that, it's fairly well distributed between Kaizen events, rapid planning events, and value stream mapping. So it is
I'd love to hear what the other is too. 30% said other. So type that in the chat window.
Yeah, please.
And Nathaniel really likes your idea on using the wife's laptop, as long as she doesn't have to work at the same time.
Well, we ask, don't ask for forgiveness because your session might get interrupted. So definitely want permission ahead of time on that front.
Yes,
and like Tracy said, if we'd love to, in the chat window, we'd love to hear what other type of events you've run virtually, team collaborative type events.
Yes, and so while we're waiting for that, can you tell us a little bit about the differences between some of these activities?
Yeah, absolutely, Tracy. So actually, I put something together to help people understand. We won't spend a lot of time on this, but just give people an orientation. As I said before, both strategy deployment and value stream mapping, I think of them as much more strategic level. So with strategy deployment, we're looking at what the organization's big goals and making sure there's connectivity between what we want to achieve as an organization and what it is that we're executing and what we're focusing on downstream, over the course of whatever it might be, 6 months, 12 months into the future. So like it says here, big participation by senior leadership. Those are the primary folks in the room because it is a strategic nature. And what we're getting out of this is basically transition from objectives and how we measure those objectives, or KPIs, what our high-level initiatives are, and action items. And we do different types of levels of granularity on the deliverables. It's a function of the organization's needs, size of the organization, and such. And when I'm doing these as events, at the end of the team, the first phase of the team activity, we're ready to actually roll that stuff out for review, not roll it out for deployment, but roll it out for feedback, reality check. Some folks might recognize the term catchball. that's kind of a Hoshin Kanri or strategy deployment type activity. Again, value stream mapping is strategic, but strategically, we're looking at one of our processes from request to delivery. Again, there's a heavy composition on the team of senior management. Key deliverable coming out of a VSM activity is a transformation plan. Yes, we've got a current state identified, future state identified, but transformation plan is kind of our set of experiments, and that might help determine, what those experiments are, whether they're maybe it's Kaizen events or RPEs, rapid planning events. Maybe it's A3s, maybe it's action items, maybe it's projects. So again, those two are much more strategic. And then when we get into Kaizen events, they're much more narrowly focused, much more tactical in nature. And we're really, actually, we're transitioning on the left side here. The strategic stuff is defining what it is we need to work on, what it is we need to improve. And as we get to these things on the right, the tactical stuff, different level of players, it's the folks that are really close to the process, and they're defining how the process should be executed. So it's the front lines, if you will. Hey, front lines could be customer service. Front lines could be engineers. Front lines could be on the call center. It could be on the shop floor, whatever it might be. But also some support folks, because the front lines don't necessarily have all the knowledge, resources, technical skills, whatever it might be, that's required to put in place changes.
Mm-hmm.
So like we said before, new process is defined, we've tested stuff, and we've got stuff implemented. Maybe there's a 30-day list if there's a few stragglers. And like I said before, rapid planning events, tactical. Again, it's the doers and support personnel. And coming out of that, we've got a transformation plan. I like to keep those short term, maybe 30 days, 60 days. Again, it's very situational, but for, lots of times we run into situations where it's not practical to put those changes in place in a short period of time.
So Mike, really quickly, this is a great overview of the different activities that you've done in a collaborative situation. Roughly how many days did it look like before COVID? Like how much, I'm sure it does vary to a degree, but roughly how many days were you spending live doing each of these events? And then what did one of these things look like pre-COVID? I'd love to hear a little more deeper dive on one of these.
Yeah, sure. So again, it depends. A big part of any of these things is scoping it out, and scoping it will help determine what the duration is. But pre-COVID, not uncommon. Hey, value stream mapping, almost a vast majority of value stream mapping activities, 3 days. Same with rapid planning events. It seems like, hey, understand current state, identify that it's 3 days seems to work well for there. Kaizen events, I've done everything from half-day Kaizen events to 6-day Kaizen events. Mm-hmm. What these looked like, boy, in America, we have the jury system, and they talk about sequestered juries on occasion, where they stick the jury in a court proceedings into a room, and they don't let the jury out of that room, or they don't let them leave for certain types of cases until they come up with a verdict. So we talked about, hey, the team is together full time. Yes, we let them go home at night. Yes, I'm a big believer in don't ask people to do 12-hour days and things like that. But hey, it's a reasonable respect for people type thing. It's 8-hour day, 9-hour day, but it's full time. It's undivided attention. So 3 days is a real common thing. Hoshin Kanri, how long that takes, that can be, sometimes it's a little more fractured. It's not necessarily 3 days or X number of days back to back to back, because sometimes we can have a chance to march off and do some activities and then get back together. But still, it's typically most, if not full days dedicated. That's what they were. And we were all in the same room, and we got big sheets of white paper and Post-it notes and butcher paper, and we got stuff all over the room. The rooms are littered with artifacts.
Yes, and it was a lot of fun and a lot of energy in those. And I've helped and participated in some of the sessions that you and I did, and especially for the San Diego State piece, and it was a lot of fun. So let's do another poll, shall we?
Yes. So So question, because obviously what we've done is we've kind of transitioned into online. And so I'm going to be talking a fair amount about Zoom and using it in conjunction with Miro. Would love to know what online team collaboration tools you have used this year since COVID, and select all that apply here. So see, people are already responding.
Yes, they are. Yeah, there's so many choices now. I mean, at least that's the nice thing about, well, I guess there's something positive coming out of COVID is it forces us to explore really cool tools that we probably would not have paid attention to in the past.
Right.
Okay, we've got about 66% of the vote. Other, 40% others coming up again. So I'd love to hear what those other tools are. Just type them in the Zoom or the chat window as well. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and let's see what the results say.
So really interesting that 69% of the folks are just doing Zoom or just doing Teams. And I'm glad you guys are here because there's some fantastic functionality in addition to what Zoom and Teams utilize or offer that can really, really help engage people and keep them awake. And I'll even say, keep them honest. So
yes.
Looks like about 18% of you have been using Miro. Miro, option D there, is similar to Miro, similar functionality and such, as is Trello. So looks like, a quarter, maybe a third of the people, there's probably some overlap there, have used some of those platforms.
And I'll just share, we've got a few comments in the chat window too. WebEx, Lucidchart, Slack. We've also heard Smartsheet, Teamworks, Google Hangout, Asana. That's the one we use. High Five. I want to hear about High Five. That sounds like a cool name. Microsoft Whiteboard, Stormboard. So these are all really good. Dropbox too.
Yeah, very so cool. as we go through this, you guys, just kind of look at what our intent here was to show you collaboration. I've been using Miro almost exclusively, Zoom and Teams, of course, but I shouldn't say of course, but Zoom and Teams as well. But look at the functionality and look at what some of these virtual whiteboards offer. And this is much more than the whiteboards that you see when we're, like a Zoom whiteboard. It's so much more than that. And I think you guys will get a kick out of this.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Good. Really good. Really helpful. Thanks for participating in some of those. So what I want to know is, so what happened? So you outlined the 4 different things you've been doing virtually for the most part. And you kind of outlined how many days each of those were happening. So then COVID hits. So what does that look like? You couldn't be in the same room. What did it, I mean, how did you group sessions, if you will, like the Hoshin Kanri or a value stream mapping? Obviously you can't have someone in there for 3 straight days.
Right.
Well, I'm sure some people have tried it and decided that it wasn't very useful. So tell us a little bit about how that dynamic changed and then other things that happened because of COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been a series of experiments and it's actually been with feedback cycles within the experiments, which, first off, how long do you do sessions? It was really interesting. The first sessions that I scheduled, because I'd been doing some training, I'd been looking at all kinds of webinars, I'd been watching people, I'd been, doing research, and everybody out there was saying, you can't go more than 90 minutes to 120 minutes. And I get that for a webinar. I get that for training, even if it's virtual, like instructor-led training, so live training. I get that. But one of the things we learned real early on is for team activities like this, where we're trying to get stuff done, boy, it takes half an hour, 45 minutes just to get, every time we'd start a session, it seems like it would take half hour, 45 minutes just to get our mentally set up. And some of the adjustments we made in our first online event, which was early May, some of the adjustments we made were, hey, these sessions need to be longer. They need to be longer because we're into, we're half an hour into a 90-minute session. We've got an hour worth of traction and people are rolling. And then Mike says, well, session's over and people have another meeting right now. So we had to end the sessions. Yeah. So we've played around with, one session a day, one 90-minute session a day, two 90-minute sessions a day, sessions Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Currently, what our latest experiments that have been working pretty well is, believe it or not, 3-hour sessions. And the time flies when people are engaged. If I'm passively participating, I'm not engaged. And passively participating 3 hours is like an eternity. It would be like a 12-hour session in an in-person event. So I'm going to share with you guys some of the stuff that we've been doing in Miro and kind of walk you through one of the events that we did. Well, this was interesting. I said our first event we did was early May. And that was actually Hoshin. We did a strategy deployment activity, so senior leadership in an industry that was heavily impacted by COVID and the change in their market. And they said, we need to pivot. We had a strategy. We're pretty good at strategy execution, fairly good at strategy execution. We had a strategy deployment session on the books for later this year, like this month. And they said, we need to do that a lot sooner. So that was pretty cool. And it was that was the right thing to do, was to, I'll call it, make that pivot. So what I think you guys are seeing right now is actually a sanitized set of slides and such from Miro and from an event or a series of events.
Hey, Mike, quick question from Melody.
Yeah.
She wants to know just briefly, what do you think is the most user-friendly to do a swim lane or process mapping? Do you like Miro, or are some of the other ones better that were mentioned, like Mural or something like? Any quick opinion you want to share before we dive into Miro?
So we had good success with Miro. Full disclosure, we did a very cursory review of Mural. And one of the things, these are collaborative tools. So getting through learning curves. And one of the consensus among a small group was that Miro had a much shorter learning curve. It was more intuitive than some of the other tools. And I'll show you guys a swim lane, which actually was for a value stream, but it's a swim lane map. So it was pretty easy to. That's my recommendation based on limited sampling. And I see another chat question: is Miro free? You can actually, and I'll get some of the details wrong on this, but you can get a demo version free with a limited number of boards. So you might have one board for team one, another board for team two. Like I've got separate boards for separate clients. But with the free version, so it's great for analyzing. You only get to collaborate with 3 people, and I think you only get 3 boards. They actually have a consultant package, which is only it's less than $15 a month for the consultant package. And there's you need to look at it and see what all the details are behind it. So this is just kind of a little demo board that I use to help orient, in addition to some preview, some videos, some YouTube and Miro videos to orient people to how to use and navigate Miro. But it's pretty cool, okay? It's got some classic functionality that you'd see with any type of object, any application that uses objects. So you get, whether it's, how do you change font, how do you change the size of this sticky note, to, my favorite, undo. So you can put in place comments. You can use the function so it notifies people. Oh, by the way, I don't work for Miro. I don't get any bonuses or premiums or anything like that from Miro. I'm just out there saying, hey, this is a pretty cool tool that I've used with different companies. So it's got functionality with the comments. You can do colors. You can put text box in there. I was playing around with it with one of my brothers who's a project manager in the construction industry, and he downloaded a whole complete set of drawings there. There's probably better apps for using construction drawings and marking them up, but still the functionality is there. You can insert documents and redline or mark up those documents, as well as maybe it's easier to get to links. Miro defines itself, or they describe themselves as an infinite whiteboard or an infinite workspace. I think it's great to call it a collaborative infinite workspace. And just to give you an idea, if you look at the right-hand corner here, I think you can see my cursor way down in the right-hand corner. This is a map. You can call it the map of the world, okay? And inside this guy in the very far right-hand corner, bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see one section is outlined in dark bold, so bold box. That's actually where we are right now. We are looking at one little piece of this whole big workspace.
Kind of like a map at Disneyland where you are in the park.
Exactly. And it's real easy to bounce around within the park. I'll go off script here. Boom, I just moved over to a completely different section. There's easier ways to navigate. In fact, they have this thing called frames. And so frames, you can almost think of it as PowerPoint slides. And so we see our frames on the far left side here. We're in this first frame. We'll go here to our second frame in a second, but we can navigate through the frames. We can navigate around the world real quick and real seamlessly. So up here in the top right, as a facilitator, I can see, in fact, everybody, all the collaborators can see everybody who is in this session right now. At the moment when I took this screenshot, there's my little avatar. I was on board, and there was one other person who was on board. And if we had a good enough resolution, if I was showing it to you and find enough resolution, we could see who those initials were. One of the cool things is you can have 12 people and everybody just goes wherever they want. It's like, oh, I'm really interested in what's going on over here. So they can zoom over there, but I'm talking about something here. And so there's actually this command that says, bring everyone to me. So I'm trying to explain a Post-it note, an idea, whatever it might be. I hit the bring everyone to me and they come to me. Mm-hmm. What was that, Trace?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to ask you, so you're working with clients, you're a consultant. How did that work with them getting access to Miro, and how are you able to see who's in there and when? Can you tell us a little bit about that model of access and tracking?
Yeah. So again, I'm not a salesperson here. I've got no vested interest in Miro's success, but I love what they've got. And it's a really important question you're asking. So I actually have a consultant license, and then all of the users, I can invite them to participate in this board. Okay, so we have a different board for each activity. I can invite them to participate in this board, and they can go in whenever they want. They can go in at 2 o'clock in the morning, and trust me, I'm not there at 2 in the morning, but they can go in without my permission. Now, the model for the consultant license is each user, I get billed $3 a day for each user, and they have, every time they go on, they've got a 24-hour, I'll say, license or pass. They've got a 24-hour pass. So I've got teams with 10 people on them, and we're together for a day. And so those 10 people, $3 a person, that's $30. And whether I eat that or pass it on, whatever, it's a pretty insignificant cost in the big picture. I have no idea how their enterprise licenses work.
Okay. Okay. One last question, and then I'm going to let you show the magic of Miro. Nathaniel wants to know, did you have a hard time selling the crew on an unknown like Miro? So, for example, when you were working with your client, did you have to sell them on using Miro, or did you just, start using it and they're like, wow, this is awesome? What was your approach there?
It was a, hey guys, check this out. Well, actually, the first, coincidentally, the person or the organization that I worked with most diligently and researching and making the decision to go with it was the second client that I used it with. The first client was, it was just a coincidence or just an alignment of calendars, and we were farther ahead in the research, I guess. But so the second client I used it with, they were, the point person was already on board, said, this is great. The first client that I used it with, we spent about 10 minutes offline ahead of time talking about it, showed them some functionality, told them what their commitment was in terms of getting licenses and that they didn't have to do it. It was, hey, I think we ended up having 6 or 8 days. So it was a $200 commitment by the senior leadership team to figure out where their strategy was going. I've had a long engagement with them. I said, we're running an experiment. And they said, we love experiments. This looks fun. Let's do it. And I can tell you every single person, and we do in-process checks. Every single person who's used this has just loved it. It's so much more than what they were used to with Teams and WebEx. It's just so much more.
Awesome. Now I promise I'll be quiet. So I'm going to let you show everybody what this thing can do.
So actually, I want to kind of tee this up. We're not going to collect all of this right now. We'll let you guys kind of in the chat window. If you've been part of remote team events in the last half year, share in the chat window what your biggest challenges have been. Okay, and we'll come back to that a bit later near the end of the webinar. But now I want to go into, hey, what did our strategy deployment activity look like? So what we did, Tracy, I started this off with ahead of time, and it was offline. It was just in Teams. The president of the company sent it out to his senior staff and said, hey, the world has changed. What should our strategic objectives be? And these are all sanitized. But, and so this is the short list of what some of the responses were. And so this was preparation work. And then in our first Zoom/Miro session, so for clarification, it was a Zoom meeting and people were working on Miro. So we used Zoom for the audio. I used Zoom because one of my rules is cameras on always. So we used Zoom, cameras on, we used it for the audio, and we used it for the breakout rooms. So this was preparation ahead of time. I put all of these onto the Post-it notes ahead of time. And then one of the first activities we did was we had everybody kind of walk through what do these things mean. And then we did an affinity diagram. And so an affinity diagram is basically, many of you have probably done affinity diagrams, but in person, if we were in a live situation, we'd have a bunch of Post-it notes up on the wall. And we ask everybody to get up and move these Post-it notes around and group them. And it's kind of a fun activity because when you do it by the book, which I typically do, and I did it this way online, we do it without speaking to each other. So we're moving Post-it notes around. And actually, when you do these live, it's kind of fun because people are like, if one person has, hey, they've got that reduce operating expenses, because they start out with this. It's just a bunch of Post-it notes. And then the next thing they do is they group them. We don't have headings there. Those blue headings aren't there yet. And they're just grouping them. And it's funny because when you do this online, you can see like 3 or 4 people and you can see where everybody's at. You can see where their little cursors are. You'll have 3 or 4 people fighting for the same Post-it note. It's kind of entertaining and it's a different dynamic. But so this was the first thing that we did was as a big group, we grouped things together. As a big group, we had conversations about what are the headings, what are the names of those groups? And then we had a discussion and we came up with 3 teams. I'm not sure where Ann, Steve, and Jim are on this, but we had 3 different teams, 3 different groups that were kind of the teams, and those became the breakout groups and the owners of each of these 3 different groupings.
Yeah.
So after go ahead.
I'm just going to say really quickly, we're already seeing challenges with participation, but it sounds to me like the beauty of this is everybody can participate at the same time. Everybody's in there. Everybody's fighting over Post-its. And sometimes even in live sessions, it's the facilitator that's putting up the Post-its. So this is more interactive. Love.
It's a great point you make, Tracy, because it's been one of my, and maybe it's a weakness in my facilitation, but my style is typically, and it evolves once the team warms up and such, but they're making the comments, we're pulling information out of them, and I'm writing on the Post-it notes, and I'm putting them on the board. And even if they're sitting 5 feet away, can they really read what I wrote? My handwriting's not that bad, but we're trying to get some complex stuff onto a Post-it note. And if they can read it, and if they don't agree what's written there, how long does it take before they're comfortable enough getting up, going up there, or saying even to me, no, that's worded wrong. The really cool thing about this is, hey, $3 a day per user, they all have full editing rights. And so, hey, over here it says grow region X. I screwed up when I wrote that down. It's really grow region Y. Anybody can go in there and they can change that to grow region Y. And it's that tough. And anybody can do it. Now, we have to have some rules around it so there's not anarchy. If we change something, we actually agreed on a rule where if I change something when nobody else is around or not everybody has seen it, we change the color of it. And so now that's a visual cue to me and everybody else that, oh, we need to go back and talk about that light blue Post-it because somebody added something, or because I might just go in there and I might say, hey, I'm putting a new Post-it there, and which is about as tough as this. New idea.
I love that. So really you are directing people with, oh, this is as a change over here, take a look at this. And people don't feel like they got blindsided. Nice.
Right. And again, back to that insomniac, 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody wakes up and says, oh my God, I completely forgot something. Or they're just always up at 2 in the morning on their computer, and they can go in there and they can make this. It just back to your original point, Tracy. In many ways, this drives more engagement by the people that are on the team. It really does. And they can see everything. They can read it. So.
And, you know, the nice thing is we always are hearing things are a little slower online. You know, you got to be patient and give it time. But what you just demonstrated is this is where you pick up some time, because everybody can be putting in Post-its at the same time, right? You're not waiting for single piece, you know, single processing of a facilitator writing it down and putting it on a Post-it, because everybody's putting it on Post-its and then they can sort, which is nice.
Yeah, and we need to be a little careful, because if 8 people are writing Post-its at the same time, sometimes that makes total sense. But if we're saying, hey, what's the process and what's the problems around this process, I'm trying to get a common understanding of what's going on among the whole team. So I'm going to put some bounds around, no, I don't want everybody writing at the same time. I want us all focused on what this person is saying. This is what happens now. These are the issues that we have at this process.
Mm-hmm.
Make
Brent
sense?
wants to know, yes, Brent wants to know, do you need help facilitating this, or is it easy to manage the work and the conversation at the same time?
So it helps to have somebody, whether it's an internal of managing those 2 roles at the same time, of typing and facilitating. But it definitely helps to have, like, I've always got a team leader on the internal team. And so that person is constantly, and they're enabled to help me. So, hey, if you got 2 people that are kind of the point people, it's definitely better than 1. Short answer. So, good question, Brent. So, hey, what do we do? Hey, we narrowed the scope. Then we went into breakout rooms. We used the Zoom breakout rooms, and the teams would say, okay, I've got our strategic objective, which is focused more on the financial side, perhaps. This is the big strategic objective, maintain compliance with bank requirements. These are some of the thoughts behind it. These are the metrics or the KPIs that this team came up with. They do this in the breakout room. That's another thing. Hey, if we're doing classes, training in breakout rooms, they say those should be short, 3, 4, 5 minutes, something like that. It depends on what it is that we're doing. I tried doing short breakout rooms, and that was an experiment that just fell flat on its face. 5-minute breakout rooms to do things like this? No way. These are 30-minute, 45-minute breakout rooms in many cases. Not always, but many cases. We want people thinking about this stuff deeply. And so, and that's, in reality, that's what I'd give them. Well, in reality, if we were doing it live in person, I'd be able to monitor, in this case, 3 different teams. I'd be able to monitor progress. I can still do that through Zoom. I can still do it through watching where everybody's at on the Miro board. But it's hard to hear what's happening on the other side of the room. Sometimes you just pick up cues from another group. They're not moving forward at all. And I wouldn't necessarily see that virtually. But I guess back to my original point is the breakout rooms, don't feel constrained because somebody said breakout rooms should be short. Think about what the purpose is of the breakout room. how much time would that require in real life? And maybe it's a little shorter than that because, hey, when we do breakouts in real life, seems like it could take 5 or 10 minutes before everybody's got their coffee, gone to the bathroom, sat down, said hi, and start working. When we do it virtually, it's almost right away. Just like this meeting, it started on time today at the top of the hour. In the real world, that doesn't always happen. So, hey, breakout rooms, come back, do a reality check with the big group, back into the breakout rooms to refine or adjust based on the feedback. This is good stuff. It's really cool what the teams are doing. And again, more rounds of breakout rooms. In this case, again, it's a strategy deployment activity. Hey, here's our KPIs. Here's kind of the key focus areas within those KPIs. And these are kind of the initiatives. That same cycle, breakout rooms, reality check with the big group, and then back into the breakout rooms. We will get to catch ball, but right now we're playing catch ball just among the leadership team in this case. We'll play catch ball a little bit later as we roll it down. So even if your methodology is different, as far as how you play catch ball or something like that, I think the interactiveness of the platform lends itself to a lot of these activities or to success.
Good. Skip's asking a little bit, like what he's seen so far is the Post-its and moving them around. He's saying that's very similar to what Microsoft Whiteboard can do. I'm sure that there's other things that Miro can do as well, like this template. I don't know if this is something you created in Miro or if you imported it or what have you, but they also have some of the mapping and things like that as well, right?
Right. So they got a whole bunch of templates, and I'm not. That's great input. I didn't know that Microsoft Whiteboard does all of those things as well. I'll bet you they've got templates as well. And so this is, again, I want to say this. I'm not trying to sell Miro. I'm trying to drive or share with people how we can engage in collaborative activities, whatever the platform is. And it's pretty powerful. So that's great. That's great input, Skip, is that there's, that Microsoft Whiteboard does the same thing. So
good to know.
So, yep. There's a cool little timer down here. So when we do breakout activities, we'll start the timer so that everybody knows where we're at. So from a timing perspective, hey, we got 30-minute breakout, and this, regardless of where somebody is on the board, they will see that. So, all right, let's see if we can get down here. So we did a strategy deployment, an X matrix if you like them or if you don't like them. Some of the folks on the team really liked them. Some of them didn't. So actually, I think you guys have been talking to us about this one, so, and we've been sharing this live. I did want to know what else people have been using. We'll come back and summarize those in a few minutes. So somebody asked early on about swim lanes. So here's a value stream map that we kind of did in a swim lane type format. And just so you're a little familiar, I don't want to zoom in too much on this one, but the way that we oriented this, or the way that we, so kind of these yellow Post-its in the middle are the different activities. This is value stream level. These purple Post-its up here are kind of the pain points related to this phase. Okay, so we broke this into phases. So pain points, ideas to address, pain points. You can see some of these are light blue. We never went back and changed them to green, but those would say somebody added those later on. And then what we were able to do is we were able to copy all of these green ideas. They haven't been evaluated. It's kind of like real-time brainstorming. And we're able to capture all of those ideas, copy, paste over to a different frame or a different section of the board, and kind of group them. Actually, we had the breakout teams group them into like ideas. So instead of 80 some ideas, it really came down to less than 30 ideas. And we prioritized those ideas. And this is very interactive. I mean, this is so much more interactive and so much more efficient use of time than the way we would do this in person. If we were live, we'd have numbers on each of these instead of copying them from one place to another. And we would just number them or put serial numbers on them. And here we're just able to copy paste. So when we're looking at this, it's like, okay, hey, there's there's exactly what number 57 said. It said set criteria for when to close bridge. So that's just our prioritization process. Go ahead.
Hey Mike, can you go back to the value stream mapping page? So obviously you wrote the book on value stream mapping. So you know value stream maps pretty good. So you kind of walked us through these different rows and these different colors, but not necessarily from top to bottom. And now, did you do that because that's the chronological order of how you build it?
So some of it is, all the leanies out there will love it when they hear me say this. Some of it is because, hey, I've put the yellow ones here, or the process steps here, and the pink pain points above it, or purple pain points above it, because that's the way I've always done it. Okay. And it seems to work pretty well because we're trying to align with each of the phases. And then it just makes, to me, it makes sense to let's attach those ideas up on top. I typically do the future state on a whole separate whiteboard or a piece of butcher paper. And so on this one, I thought it kind of, we thought it kind of made sense. Hey, let's kind of align. The phases are still the same for this value stream. There's really no change in the phases. There may be changes in the steps or elimination or whatever, but let's align our future state with the current state phases.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah.
So how long did it take to put this value stream map together?
Oh, well, this was a good question. I don't know the answer. I got to think about that for a second. I'll bet you it was for the value stream map, current state, idea, pain points, ideas, future state was, we did it over 2 weeks. It was probably 18 to 20 hours of group time, big group time. Mm-hmm. There was a little bit of offline work that the folks had that we asked the folks to do. Mm-hmm. In their small breakout teams. We took the phases, like we had one small team of 3 people that looked at these first 2 phases. We had another small team that looked at this phase. I think there were 4 different breakout groups. And so they would do some things offline.
So if they don't have Miro, and how do they access this later? So do they always have the license? How does that work if they're using you and you're doing this in Miro? Tell us a little bit about after the event and the accessibility and use of it.
So the folks who did this VSM are still accessing this. They've still got the $3 a day per user when they activate a pass. So they can be off of it for 2 weeks and there's no cost incurred. Then they go on. You can download this, everything here, you can download as a PDF. Mm-hmm. And I'm no Adobe expert, but it looks like it's a editable PDF. Mm-hmm. Some of these things might not be, doing this X matrix in Miro may not be the most efficient way to do that. If you want to do an X matrix, it might be a lot easier to do in Excel or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, we've got about 12 more minutes. What else did you want to share with Miro, Mike?
Just some of the other things that we've just kind of done. Oh, actually, this is kind of a best practice. This is Miro, no Miro, whatever you do. I'm a big believer in doing plus deltas. And so we would do these like every other session. It's kind of cool because I just give them a blank template, pre-populated with blank Post-it notes. And in 3 minutes, we can get, hey, pluses are what'd you like about today or about how things are proceeding. And the deltas are what would you change? What could we do different? It gives people an opportunity to have some fun and but also give good constructive feedback. So we need more time to work on the early ones. They're talking about the duration of the breakout sessions and the duration of the activities. We've done some root cause analysis type work and things like that. So I think from a Miro perspective, we've already talked about other platforms or apps that people have been using.
Yeah. And did you mention the templates as well in terms of some of the templates that are available? Are they specific to Lean and Lean Six Sigma? Fishbone diagram as an example, I saw that in there.
Yep, they've got fishbone diagrams. They've got value stream maps. I haven't used the value stream map. The Some of them are a little, to be honest, a little clunky, or I just haven't put enough time and effort into it. But there's a variety of different things out there.
Yeah. Did you want to revisit maybe some of the challenges people wrote, and then we could talk about some of the key measures of success? What are your thoughts?
That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay, so I was looking at what people were writing in terms of some of their challenges, and a lot of them were related to video and audio delays, right? So getting people, they're not on video, we can't hear them, they don't have a great connection. So I hear two things with that. One is inability for the equipment to deliver, but also etiquette, right? So I know you had already mentioned this. You really want people to be on video and on audio. It actually does affect the dynamic when people are not on video. And I think if you allow them to do that, they're going to do it, because then they can get away with doing more stuff, like checking their email, multitasking. Yeah. Right? What are your thoughts?
I make it a requirement that people are on video. And if people don't have equipment for some reason, then that's something that has to be clearly understood and, I'll say, justified. If people aren't on video, we have significant challenges with focus. We still have problems or challenges with focus, but we all know some of the things that we do when we're not on video and we're in a meeting or a webinar, and they are not conducive to focus and engagement. This is not a webinar. It's not training. It's not a meeting. We're working on a process. So that needs to be very, very clearly stated as a upfront expectation.
Yes. Yes. Good. I like that. And never mind what people do when they forget that they're on video. That's a whole nother webinar. Okay. So, all right. Also, the other thing that people were saying is lack of participation, lack of engagement, lack of team dynamics. These are some of the challenges. And I think you bring up a good point, Mike, and I want to thank you in advance for sharing your knowledge about what you've learned in team dynamics and working virtually, because we're all learning. This is fairly new for the most part. And I have to be honest and say, sometimes we have to take our own responsibility and accountability as facilitators. How do we make it more engaging? Sometimes we just don't know yet. And so, yes, there's a challenge with people engaging, but this is exactly why we're doing this webinar, because this is a way for people to experiment with increasing engagement. It can be done. You can get work done effectively. And so any thoughts around this participation and engagement and lack of team dynamics?
Well, I think it helps to understand, if we're looking at a process and we understand who the players are and which part of the process, as a facilitator, we can deliberately or intentionally, it's not putting people on the spot, but ask people, what's your perspective? Hey, you're at the call center, and this is a value stream from the one we were looking at was incident response from an IT group. So you're in the call center, you're a supervisor there or a frontline person. We've talked about this, what other things? And so we need to understand what role people play in the process. I think the breakout rooms are a good way some people are just more quiet. And so breakout rooms are an opportunity for people to participate and make sure and help people's voice be heard. And actually, my experience has been, I think after the initial session, especially if we're calling on people get over their stage fright a lot faster on video than they do in person. And that's a big generalization.
Yeah. Good. Wonderful.
Hey, I saw one note from Skip, and he was asking about explain more of the VSM. And I know we just have a couple minutes more of the VSM since you weren't at the Gemba. Most of the stuff that we've done on the VSM side, I have not done any shop floor type VSMs in virtually. And the VSMs that we've done, like this one, was incident management that I'm showing here. And everything that happens is in the system. I'll be a little careful because they might be talking to somebody on a call desk, but so we pull up and screen share. Hey, this is the screen, this is what we're in, and this is this is the application or the program that we're in. These are the screens that we're navigating. These are the challenges that we're having. Here's where my percent complete and accurate issues are on this screen.
Well, we've got a few more questions, but before we resolve, and if you have any additional questions for Mike, please put them in the chat window. Why don't we cover some of the successes that you feel like are really important, and we'll cover a few more things, and then we'll answer these other remaining questions.
Yeah, so just real quick, you guys can read, and hey, give them a chance to pre-work, give them the video links. You still have to do some orientation once you get on. I've actually got an orientation sheet where I put Post-it notes with everybody's initials that's on that team. And so one of the first things we do when we kick off is I say, hey, move your Post-it, edit your Post-it, have some fun with it, moving it around. So it's fun, and people get to be creative, but give them some pre-work ahead of time. So I say session length short, but not too short. How's that for a consultant? Don't make a commitment, huh? The 3 hours is our current experiment. And I'm thinking 1 3-hour session a day, but on consecutive days. Mornings are always better because people are more awake in mornings. Cameras on, headsets if possible. As a facilitator, we should be calling on people. We talked about that already. Breakout rooms are a must. And use that timer like I showed you. So, because everybody, if you're in whatever app you're in, use the timer so people can see, oh, we've only got 10 minutes left out of our 45 minutes, and it keeps people moving forward. We talked about using those offline edits and using color coding. So we've got visuals, and those plus deltas, you guys, are gigantic. And I'm doing more formal evaluations at the end after the event is completely over, because we don't always, just to get people's overall impression as opposed to what's happened to the last day or two. So what other questions do we have, Tracy?
Let's cover your resources and call to action first, and then we'll cover the questions, because some people might have to drop off right away.
Okay, call to action. Hey, go on there, whatever it is. Go on there, get a free subscription, or get a free, and just play with this stuff, okay? Get a colleague and a problem, something you're currently working on, or it's a near-term event horizon. It doesn't have to be an actual event. Just start practicing with a platform and seeing what you can do, and move yourself up the learning curve before you try to move a team up the learning curve. And we did a lot of that. Practice, use the app, start capturing the current condition. I don't care what it is. If you're putting together a swim lane or a brainstorming session, or you just want to get a bunch of Post-it notes up there. So it's go out there, do it. Invest an hour or two of your time. And I think if you haven't played with this type of thing, it will be a real eye opener. And it's going to open the door to being able to do these types of activities with your teams.
Yes. Well, I will just say, Sammy Obara says, awesome session, Tracy. I almost forgot how good Mike was. Please bring him back again. It would be nice to simulate an exercise with the audience using Miro. Very cool. And a couple of questions. Is it possible to get the information direct from financial and ERP systems like SAP, Oracle into Miro? Have you had any experience with that?
Haven't even explored it. I don't know.
Yep. Okay. Someone wants to know, does this integrate with other apps such as SharePoint or Visio? Visio is huge in their organization, Alan says.
I know, and I don't know all the answers to that. I know it interfaces with Slack and a number of other things. I'm going to go, while you're going through other questions, I want to see if anybody recognizes. Here's some apps that it interfaces with, and there's other stuff. I mean, you can add more apps and such. This isn't Visio. It's not, I forget what the other one was that they talked about, but here's some of them.
Is FaceTime on there? I can't see it. It's too small on my screen.
I don't see FaceTime. I do, but I know it interfaces. I've been told it interfaces with Slack, and it's not on here. It doesn't show here, so play around with it.
Oh, cool. And then Mario wants to know, how about symbols or icons for value stream apps? Do you have a library of such icons? Is that available in Miro, or is that something we have to import?
Sorry, I don't know.
And you know what I love about Mike? He just tells you he doesn't know if he doesn't know an answer, okay? Not a lot of consultants do that. All right, let's see. I think that's it for questions, really. So we are at the top of the hour. Any other last final comments, Mike? I just want to say thank you for sharing your knowledge, and thank you for sharing what you've learned in your experiments to date. I think that's a really important thing. Is I have to be honest and tell you, I've approached other people and consultants, and they don't feel like they're the expert yet, and they don't want to share yet. And so thank you for being open to sharing what you know so far.
Yeah, I won't say I'm an expert, and because we're all learning, it's learning through doing. And one thing I do want to share with folks is, I think you get 70 to 80% of the benefits of doing in live activities by using platforms such as this. There's still a lot that's lost in terms of relationships, empathy, real bonding, and things like that, which I'm looking forward to getting back to in the real world, or our new real world. But it might be with everybody's on Miro and in the same room. So thank you, Tracy. Thanks everybody for showing up. Appreciate your time, and hope you got something out of it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.